Today we're going to be looking at ratios and proportions, so grab a pen or pencil and let's get started with the notes. What we're looking at is a ratio or proportion. A ratio is a comparison of two numbers by division. So a ratio is 3/4 or 9/5. Just as a comparison of two numbers. A proportion is two ratios that are made to be equal. So if you have 3/4, something that's equal to that would be 6/8. So that would be a proportion. If two ratios are equal, then their cross products will be equal. So if you have two ratios that are proportional, they're equal to each other. So if A over B, is equal to C over D, then their cross products, which would be A times D and then B times C, would be equal. So that's just a little background information and terms so we understand what we're talking about. Let's look at the examples. Determine whether the ratio is a proportion. Well, we said, if you remember on the last slide, a ratio is a proportion if their cross products are equal. So we're just going to cross multiply. 4 times 16 and then we're going to multiply 6 times 12. Is it equal? 4 times 16 is 64. 6 times 12 is 72. Are those equal? Well, 64 definitely does not equal 72. So no, those aren't a proportion. Okay. Let's look at the next one. 3 and 10, or 3/5 and 6/10. So we're going to cross multiply 3 times 10, and then we're going to multiply 5 times 6. 3 times 10, it actually look like a 10. Does it equal 5 times 6? 3 times 10 is 30. 5 times 6 is 30. So yes, it's proportional. All right. Then it says we have the question, solve the proportion. Solving proportions, all you do is cross multiply and divide. So you'd still do that cross multiplying. We're going to have 7.8 times 3.82 is equal to 4 times A. 3.82 times 7.8 is 29.796. That's equal to 4A. And we'll divide by 4. And A equals 7.449. So it's just cross multiply divide. The next one, solve the proportion. We're going to leave the negative with the 3. So we have negative 3 times x, which gives us a negative 3x. And then we have 7 times this whole side. So we're going to do 7 times x and 7 times 2. 7 times x is 7x. 7 times 2 is a positive 14. Now we have to solve the problem. We got to get our x to one side and our number constant values to the other. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 7x. Negative 3x minus the 7x is a negative 10x is equal to 14. Then I divide by negative 10. And x is equal to negative 1.4. The next one, solve the proportion. X times 5 and then 3 times x plus 6. Remember, 3 multiplies by the x and the 6. So x times 5 is 5x. And that should be equal to 3 times x, which is 3x, and 3 times 6, which is 18. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. So I have 2x is equal to 18. Then I'm going to divide by 2, and x equals 9. Just simple cross multiply divide is how you're solving these ratios and proportions. All right, next example. 2 times x plus 6, so remember the 2 distributes to both of those terms. And then 4 times x minus 2, 4 distributes to both of those terms. So 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 6 is 12. And then we have 4 times x, which is 4x, and 4 times negative 2, which is negative 8. Got to get our x's to one side, our constants to the other. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 2x here. So I have 12 is equal to, whoops, is equal to 2x. 4 minus 2 is 2. And then negative 8. Okay, add 8 to both sides. So I have 20 is equal to 2x. Divide each side by 2. X is equal to 10. So you can solve many problems that involve equal ratios and rates by using proportions. It's how we're working it out. It's cross, multiply, divide. Looking at the word problems, you need to focus on what the words say first. So we're going to write our proportion talking about words first. This question says, Josephine sells helium balloons. She charges $9 for 12 balloons. At this rate, what would she charge for 50 balloons? So you have money per balloons. That's how we're going to write our ratio. She charges $9 for 12 balloons. We want to know how much is she going to charge for 50 balloons. So we have our rate set up. Again, once you have your ratio or your proportion set up, you need to do cross multiplying and dividing. 12 times x, which would be 12x, and then 9 times 50, which would be 450. Now we can divide by 12, and x is equal to, since we're talking about money, $, $37.50. All right, the next example says a photocopy machine copied 50 pages in 1.5 minutes. At this rate, how long will a machine take to copy 90 pages? Well, we're doing pages per minute. Remember, we always start with our words to write our ratio. And it's pages per minute. The ratio we're given is 50 pages in 1.5 minutes. We want to know how many minutes it's going to take for 90 pages. Cross multiply and divide. 1.5 times 90 is 135. And then 50 times x is 50x. Now all we have to do is divide by 50. And x equals 2.7 minutes. Sorry about the bell. Let's move on to the next one. Next example. A recent school bond issued passed with 3 out of every 4 votes in favor of the bond. A total of 2,550 people voted against the bond. How many people voted in favor of the bond? All right. So you have the people in favor over the total number. All right. That was a rate of 3 out of 4. We had 2,550 against, so we want to know how many people voted for it. So, if 4 are total and 3 are for it, 1 had to be against it. So we have the total of 4 over the ones against, which would be 3 over 1. So now we can set up our proportion. 3 people voted for it, 1 people voted against it. We want to know how many total people voted for the school bond over the 2,550 that voted against it. Cross multiply and divide. 3 times 2,550, that's 7,650 is equal to x. So 7,650 people voted in favor of the school bond. That's it for our ratios and proportions. If you have any questions, send me an email or ask in class. Good luck.